Hello everybody, JayborinoPlays here. I've got another HeptaCraft replay cast. This is Game 2 between summerloud and Apocalypse. These are just casual games between them, and I was sent 2 by summerloud. So in the bottom right, we have summerloud spawning as Nerazim. In the upper left, we have Apocalypse spawning as Infested. I believe these are the new Infested that I kept talking about, so it'll be cool to take some time to see a game to really understand what they do. So the Nerazim we saw last game to quite an extent, so there isn't too much to go over with them again. We'll see what summerloud decides to do if he does some fast fanatics, but the fanatics have been nerfed. They're 20 hit points lower than they used to be. Also, the Annihilators require Robo-Bay tech to unlock, and the Nerazim function quite differently from other races. One thing I didn't talk about last game is that you do have to research to unlock units. So yeah, you can build the Robo-Bay, but that doesn't mean you can make Annihilators when the Robo-Bay is done. There's a separate research to unlock those Annihilators. Same with Adepts, same with Stalkers, same with some air units as well. So you want to keep an eye out for what Nerazim players decide to unlock for themselves, because some units cost Terrazine as well. Anyway, the new Infested, the way Infested used to work is that there was a choice that you could make between either roaches, well, weak roaches, fast weak roaches, or infested Terrans. Now, instead, I believe the infested Terran path has been reworked and semi-removed, so you can see a roach warren coming out for Apocalypse. Infested, much more reliant, I think, on early roaches instead. If we take a look at the Broodmother, yes, this is different. So they build these Infested Commanders. The Infested Commanders not only give you a +1 armor bonus, which is awesome, and it looks like Apocalypse trying to block this probe from summerloud from getting through. Summerloud maybe clipping it through by right-clicking some minerals. Both players looking like they're scouting each other with workers. Fast Cyber Core from summerloud, so we're not going to see double warp gate with fast fanatics or anything like that. Anyway, back to these Infested Commanders. The Infested Commanders are great support units, but then they can also throw down these infested colonies, and then from the infested colonies you can get infested Terrans for free. The infested commanders do cost Terrazine, though. It looks like summerloud choosing to enable Adepts from his Cyber Core. Those Adepts, not only do you have to wait for this upgrade, but then the Adepts themselves do cost Terrazine. But, you know, if you're a race that doesn't rely on late-game Terrazine upgrades, it's probably worth spending it on individual units. I mean, we saw that those Infested Commanders also cost Terrazine. I'm really taking a look at these. So, rather than making a whole separate tech structure with your Broodmother and choosing between, you know, early weak roaches or the Infested Terran path, you can kind of do both, but you're primarily going to stick with roaches. So that's very interesting. So we have a fast Adept as well as Warp Pylons coming out, so summerloud may be deciding, I see he's moving a probe up here, going to try to sneak a pylon somewhere so that once that warp pylons is done, he can build the pylon closer to Apocalypse and warp in more Adepts. We do have one Adept moving across the map quickly to see what he can do with those. Again, Adepts costs, I think, 7-ish Terrazine. Yeah, it's 7 Terrazine. So again, unless you're planning on using that Terrazine later, you can dump it into these fast Adepts. I don't think Stalkers cost Terrazine or anything like that. It's just Adepts, but, you know, they're very good against light units with those the glaive cannons and then the psionic transfer, which is really, really good for harassment. Really powerful harassment units all cost Terrazine and HeptaCraft. It's not just like an Adept exclusive thing. Using psionic transfer to get through the Broodmother. The Broodmother is not a defensive unit. It doesn't have an attack. It's just what you use to build things. And this Adept now getting into the base, chasing away the Feederlings. Decent amount of Feederlings now running away. The Adept choosing to chase them rather than take out the Feederlings that are stuck here. 2 Adepts now are up here, and 5 Roaches reacting to these Adepts. These 5 Roaches, again, they're weak. They only have 45 health, and they count as light, but they are able to take out 1 Adept. The other Adept getting away with psionic transfer just in time as it's trying to chase away these Feederlings. This is certainly affecting Apocalypse's income, but the fact that he can kill 2 Adepts at the cost of 0 Roaches is huge. Huge victory for Apocalypse, in my opinion. No Feederlings go down, 1 Feederling going down. That actually may have been the scouting one as well, I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, a Dark Council going down for summerloud as well as unlocking Stalkers. We have Glio Reconstitution finishing up. And there's one of those Infested Commanders, and there's our +1 aura. It also has the Infested Regeneration all the Infested units do, which works specifically at night. And that Infested Colony, you need a laboratory for. Interesting. Anyway, we have 2 more Adepts coming in, trying to use psionic transfer to get away. One gets out, the other one getting picked up by those Roaches. Again, these Roaches are not very strong. 45 health, and they're light. You'd think Adepts would work very well with them, but the Adepts have simply been outnumbered, and Apocalypse able to find the proxy from summerloud and take it out. So a lot of summerloud's early play has been counteracted significantly by Apocalypse. He does have this Infested Commander out, and I'm interested to see if we'll see a laboratory to see, I mean, I don't see one building, but maybe we'll see those infested colonies go down. Who knows? Blink coming out from summerloud as well as his first forge. Both players have taken an expansion. Let's check the income. pretty close on harvesters, pretty close on income. Apocalypse with a slight lead. Again, he probably should have a slight lead. He pushed back some early harass almost entirely at Summerloud's expense. He only lost one worker. Now warping in some stalkers. These stalkers, they don't have an extra damage versus armored, so they will still perform pretty well against these light roaches, but only 2 stalkers here to defend against this amount of roaches. We'll see how they fare. Blink is not done yet. In fact, it's quite a while away from being done. We'll see if Summerloud is able to hold on, trying to escape with his probes. 4 workers going down there initially, losing 1 pylon here on top of the pylon that he lost earlier across the map. And this expansion, this early expansion from Summerloud may actually go down, trying to get these roaches, trying to bait them into attacking him. And then this +1 aura from the Infested commander may actually make a big difference in these early fights. Another stalker going down, and probes getting pulled off the line after getting buffed with those with that shield boost, giving 50 extra shields to them as they're trying to chase away these roaches. Where did the Infested commander go? He's still in there. Another group of roaches here from Apocalypse, really keeping the pressure on. 16 roaches, 18 roaches. Now down to 16, but still, these stalkers doing their best. All these probes going down. That's so much of Summerloud's income. How many probes have gone down? 17 by Apocalypse is huge. Summerloud doing his best to hold on here. Really, really great, tenacious defense from Summerloud, but will it be enough? I think maybe he's just sort of giving up on this as he tries to peek in with his stalkers to try to get what he can. Trying to get rid of that Infested commander to get rid of that +1 armor bonus, because keep in mind that basically means that these stalkers are doing 9 damage instead of 10, which could make a big difference against these roaches. And 6 stalkers out. It looks like Apocalypse toying with the idea of going back in. The stalkers now going on the offensive. How many will go down? Picking off roaches here and there. The roaches are decently fast. 385 now with Blink, as trying to use those to blink on top of the retreating roaches. Another stalker going down. And how's the income now look for both players? Apocalypse now nearly double of Summerloud, and it looks like these roaches now morphing into Ravagers. They're not Ravagers anymore, they're Arachnids. They have been reworked. Corrosive Bile is no longer a thing as far as I know. Instead, they do slightly more damage, have slightly more health, and they do this lobbed corrosive poison attack. You do have to upgrade it eventually. Anyway, they do more against armored, so these Arachnids are just direct upgrades over the roaches. You can see they've been scaled down a little bit, only 75 health, but still not quite Ravagers. They're 25-25 in terms of health. But if you upgrade them to do extra poison damage, then you'll see a big difference there. Because I think every stack of poison does as much damage as the initial attack, which is crazy, crazy good. We do have 2 plasma cannons here going to do their best to defend this expansion. Large group of roaches and Arachnids, though, from Apocalypse trying to do their best. These 2 plasma cannons going to try to hold on as Apocalypse sneaks in to take them out. We do have a shield boost here from Summerloud to buff up his stalkers with 50 extra shields, and trying to do his best to get in there and do as much damage as he can, but Apocalypse is constantly on the offensive. He backs out to get some reinforcements and kind of gather himself, and then decides perhaps now is the time to go back home. But Apocalypse really doing what he needed to there, as we see 18 workers killed. Units killed actually favoring Summerloud, killing a lot of those weak roaches. I think, no, the Infested commander is still there. We have Dark Templar now coming out from Summerloud, so we'll see if Apocalypse has what he needs to detect these. He certainly doesn't here. I don't think the Infested commander can detect. No, the stalkers poking in, deciding they need to run away. As they leave, you know, they can use that Nerazim shields upgrade to get their shields back quite quickly when they're out of combat. You can see how fast they come back with those Nerazim shields. That's very good. Apocalypse still staying over there, deciding what he wants to do. Both players not a ton on the production tab. Apocalypse is floating a ton of money. I'm kind of curious to see what his plans are here. He is getting +1 for his roaches there. He has an Arachnid lair, which will allow him to get that corrosive poison. Launches a missile at the target location. Oh, so this tooltip is wrong. That may have been fixed since now, but I should point that out. The corrosive poison tooltip in the Arachnid lair is wrong, Summerloud, if you're watching this. Anyway, we can read it from here. Attacks poison the target, dealing damage equal to the impact damage of the attack after 10 seconds can stack. So even if your Arachnids die, they can have some serious vengeance from the grave. And here come 2 Dark Templar, followed up by the Stalkers. 8 Stalkers here. We'll see if Summerloud decides to use these in a fashion away from detection. I don't see any detection, though, for Apocalypse, and I'm surprised. He knows he's facing Nerazim. A Maggot Nest going down. Maggot's another interesting mid-game unit for Infested. That's fairly new. And no Nidus Dragons, or whatever they're called. What are they? Where are you? Guardian Worms. Those can detect, and there's a new flying unit for Infested as well that can detect. That's sort of a tier 2 thing. And here's a Dark Templar getting as much damage done as he can. 6 kills, 7 kills, 8 kills. Another Dark Templar also in the main base, and now we have the Guardian Worms going down as Apocalypse realizes he has no detection. And when you're going up against Nerazim, I feel like you should, especially if you see Blink, that definitely means that the Nerazim are on track to get to Dark Templar. One egg cluster going down. It seems like summerloud trying to decide where he's going with these Dark Templar. This Dark Templar has 17 kills. Wow, and just like that, summerloud has closed the worker gap. That was enormous. Apocalypse perhaps realizing maybe I just need to attack with this group of units because he does not have any detection. Again, there is a new detecting unit for Infested that is a mid-tier flying detector, but Apocalypse has none of them. 3 Guardian Worms going down by the third base, which is where all the feederlings have moved to, and we'll see how that affects income right now. And Harvesters, wow, summerloud closed the gap like crazy right there. Apocalypse deciding to try to even the score by taking out this third base. Manages to snipe it, but there are still Dark Templar in here that are going to just absolutely ravage through this group of arachnids and roaches. Meanwhile, slowly getting, picking damage off with these stalkers. Apocalypse saying, what is detection? Trying to figure out what units. Scrutinizer. I think it's called a scrutinizer. I'm not sure where you build it. How do I get it? Let's see if we can find it ourselves. A gnat, an infester, a mantis, an aberration. There it is, a scrutinizer. Aerial detector can suck creep from a creep tuber to gain near instant life regeneration. So in the case where maybe there's a bunch of Dark Templar and your scrutinizers are getting picked off and you need that detection, you can attach to a creep tumor and perhaps just get those scrutinizers right away. And now we have some maggots coming out, and there's that one scrutinizer. And wow, just like that, summerloud has closed the gap. Keep in mind, Infested were reworked, so I really don't blame Apocalypse at all, considering he had no idea that these new units were even a thing. Here's the scrutinizer, and now here are the maggots and the Infested commander going to be able to see those Dark Templar. But in the meantime, those Dark Templar have completely decimated Apocalypse's income in that small period of time, and now summerloud ahead in Harvesters, and the income is about evil. And here, even. We have multi-blink coming out from summerloud that allows you to store 1 extra charge of blink in your stalkers. That is a Nerazim upgrade that is quite expensive. It's really overpowered. It seems overpowered, but again, its cost, the way that it's priced, is to compensate for that. We have, +2 coming out, pretty reasonable upgrades from both players. +1 ground armor from Apocalypse. Apocalypse really pushing hard against summerloud in the early game, and now summerloud managed to come back with that Dark Templar play. When behind Dark Shrine, you know what they say. Void Archon's coming out now. Immolation deals damage all around itself while attacking. Interesting. Seems like now the two Void Archons merged to become a Dark Archon. Interesting. I did not realize that was the tech choice for that. The Dark Archon is huge. It doesn't have a normal attack. Has no normal attack. Can use Maelstrom, which is an old school spell from Brood War that stuns all enemies in a target area for 5 seconds. Not just biological, it looks like, in HeptaCraft. It's all units. Mind Control, and then Apocalypse deals 300 damage to enemy units and 700 damage to structures in a large area, but needs 7 seconds to channel. Yikes. So these Dark Archons, when you merge them together, I didn't quite get to see the cost, but you make Void Archons from Dark Templar, and then you use the Void Archons to make Dark Templar, or Dark Archons, excuse me. Anyway, now both players looking like to getting some upgrades. What do we have here? Artillery Glands. Increases the range of maggots from 9 to 12. +2 ground attack coming out from Apocalypse. Multi-blink just about done here from summerloud. And let's keep an eye out for Apocalypse. He now has those Guardian Worms set up in his resource line. We've got an Infestation here, which I believe allows him to make Infesters, but he's not getting any upgrades for them. It's possible that this is just a tech requirement structure. No air units coming out from either player right now, it looks like. And it looks like summerloud not really teching up to anything else. Currently, we have a decent amount of roaches coming around here from Apocalypse, checking for any 4th bases from summerloud if summerloud decides to go on the bottom side of the map as opposed to up. Both players on 3 bases. Let's check the income. Pretty even, but summerloud is up on Harvester, so if he were to take an extra base, he would be able to saturate it just a little bit faster. And again, it really just depends on what Apocalypse decides to do with a small group of roaches. Summerloud, I mean, he built those Dark Templar, and there's another Dark Archon. I wish I would have kept an eye on those Void Archons to see. I can only imagine merging them costs Nerazim. Here's one right here. It's 50 Nerazim to merge, I see. But the Void Archon, it only does 7 damage, but it has this Immolation aura, which is quite cool as well. I like the idea that there's 2 tiers of Archons, and I really like how big these Dark Archons are, too. 350 shields, 5 health. Anyway, it looks like both players are going separate ways. Apocalypse still looking around to see if there's anything sneaky from Summerloud, to see if maybe there's some pylons down here. I'm not sure what his plans are for this unit, for this group down here, but Summerloud deciding to push out and take a 4th base further up the map rather than taking the slightly safer one that's over to the left. These stalkers peeking in, realizing there's creep there, maybe deciding to come home. But there's not much happening right now. We do have a Stargate coming out from Summerloud and +3 for ground attack. A reasonable amount of maggots coming out from Apocalypse. We'll see how those fare. He does have a large amount of maggots. I really want to see how these function. They're just giant banelings. They do move quite slow, though, so that probably is going to be their downfall, or the way to counter them. Oh, dear. One of the scrutinizers getting taken out, but I don't see any Dark Templar in here blinking out with those stalkers as the concentrated maggot fire does shoo them away. I'm not entirely sure if that was splash damage or what. The longer the maggot attacks, the faster its attacks gets. That's pretty cool. And then that artillery glance has been researched. Volatile. The maggot explodes on death, dealing 75 damage to enemies around it. It does not do friendly fire. And what's going on down here? We had some of the roaches be able to sneak in, but good reaction time from Summerloud as he's able to pick off all of this. Doesn't look like he lost too many probes, and I'm not going to rewind to check, but the workers killed is pretty much even at this point. That's crazy. We would expect Summerloud to be ahead in units killed on an, a pretty even matchup at this point. Charge now coming out for those for fanatics of Summerloud. He hasn't made any, though, and here comes a Void Archon and the 2 Dark Archons. Summerloud maybe deciding to get aggressive. He has a reasonable amount of stalkers. We did see a Scrutinizer get taken out, so unless Apocalypse makes another one, and I don't see one being built, unless he's got another one in here, those Dark Templar will be able to wreak havoc on the army of Apocalypse unless it's close to these Guardian Worms. And it looks like Summerloud going for the rocks. Does Apocalypse see this? Let's check. He can see the rocks getting destroyed. We'll see if he reacts to it. I don't know if he's... I mean, unless he was looking at this base, he wouldn't notice that these debris were getting cleared. He's probably focused on this. And again, he's looking, he's looking right here, so he's not noticing that Summerloud is going to push up into his natural expansion. And with this amount of stalkers, how many stalkers are here? 17. These Guardian Worms going to do their best. 1 egg cluster going down. All that's going to do is release a Baneling Swarm, but it also supply blocks Apocalypse. Apocalypse trying to turn around. And where those Dark Archons, he's not using the Dark Archons. He has, keep in mind, he has multi-blink on these stalkers, so he can blink out. Actually destroying the infestation. Again, I'm not 100% sure what the tech requirements are for that. Using the 2 stored blink charges to get out a reasonable amount of stalkers, but wow, with this amount of maggots, those do a lot of damage. Do you see how fast those attack? It seems like they may do splash damage, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But we saw those stalkers just get decimated. I mean, keep in mind, there are 12 maggots here. That is a lot. And here comes the Dark Archons slowly making their way to wherever. Summerloud did leave these out for a long time to get their energy up. We'll see what he decides to do. Starting to clear some of the creep tumors, as the Oracle is your mobile detector. It just permanently does have detection. And here are the Infestors. We'll see exactly what they can do. Mutagenic Boost creates a cloud that increases attack speed and life regeneration for all friendly biological units. That's awesome. Fungal Growth slows down target units at 25% of their normal movement speed. So it doesn't freeze them in place. It slows them down 75%, and it causes them to take 60 damage over time. So that's, I would say, a very different fungal growth than what we're used to, but that mutagenic boost could be used to some serious effect. Anyway, here comes what I would expect to be a large engagement. Summerloud perhaps realizing that he can't quite hold on here, starts to channel the Apocalypse. Starting to channel Apocalypse. Apocalypse, the player, seeing that this is coming and decides to move away from it. That's all the energy, well, not all the energy of the Dark Archon. It looks like both can handle that. Maelstrom possibly going down, but 2 Brood Hosts now from Apocalypse. These units are crazy with this amount of maggots plus the Brood Hosts. I'm curious to see if Summerloud can hold on. This is late game Infested. These Brood Hosts are terribly powerful with the creepers and swarmers that they can spawn. They're very strong. You really can do a lot of damage with only 2 of these, but they're basically like carriers on the ground. Tons and tons of Dark Templar, though, pushing back against the Infested swarm. All the maggots starting to go down, but the maggots explode, taking out all the Dark Templar again when behind Dark Shrine, but it's working against Summerloud right now as the maggots blow themselves up as they die to wipe out those Dark Templar. Does Summerloud? Summerloud has the money. He could get even more Dark Templar. I think he realizes maybe that's what he needs, are Dark Templar. Really, the Brood Hosts, in my opinion, are where the major problems are at. He does not have the More There Must Be More upgrade. It does allow him just to get more Creepers and Swarmers for the Brood Hosts, but I think the issue is that he doesn't even need them because he has so many maggots here. And the maggots kind of defend you from Dark Templar, even though they're going to end up dying. Tons of roaches, too. Just the roach swarm is going to help defend these really powerful maggots and brood hosts. I think that plague host may have been removed. I noticed that the brood host spawns swarmers and creepers. I'm not sure. The swarmers are anti-air, the creepers are anti-ground. That's very interesting. Anyway, we have a fanatic warping up here. Well, they probably just ran up there. Going for a lot of the units here, and what has happened? That was very strange. I'm not sure what just happened there, but my screen went black there. I apologize. Something with StarCraft. Anyway, all these roaches able to clean up that fanatic warp in. More fanatics going across the map. I think summerloud is now throwing fanatics everywhere he can to try to get himself back in where he needs to be. Lots of guardian worms coming up to defend these expansions, and this amount of guardian worms able to push down a bunch of fanatics going in for this 4th base of Apocalypse. Now keep in mind, Summerloud is up 1 base, but they're not saturated. If we look at the income, Summerloud is actually down, trying to rebuild these Dark Archons. I really like seeing these Dark Archons in action, but if you have a player like Apocalypse who knows what to look for, he won't get hit by that Apocalypse spell. It's funny that because there's a player named Apocalypse, I have to distinguish between the player and the spell. Anyway, this really, I think, is the scary death ball that you will see out of Infested, especially, you know, you've got the Infested utility unit in there who can throw down a fungal growth. Getting a mutagenic boost would just be even better. But you got the large amount of roaches that are in there doing their best to soak up hits to really protect the brood host. We also have scrutinizers in there that will stop any sneaky play. Oh dear, we have an Apocalypse spell being channeled. What's going to happen here? And killing his own units with Apocalypse, perhaps mutually assured destruction here. All of these roaches getting turned into arachnids. Meanwhile, we have a Vindicator here. This is a capital ship for Nerazim. It allows shield boosts, which is the same that we see, the same shield boost from the Nerazim Nexi. Also a Chrono Boost Aura and Vortex. The issue is you have to research Vortex. The Vindicator, we'll see how much this does. Weapon speed of 0.1, so 7 damage every 0.1 seconds is pretty crazy. We'll see how that goes. 70 damage a second, but the question is, can Summerloud really hold on? He has nothing to protect his high-powered units, whereas Apocalypse is the complete opposite. He has his high-powered units, he's got his mid-tier units in the back to provide major support, plus the Arachnid Roach, which is just his big ball of meat. That sounds terrible, but that's exactly what they are. Who cares if those things die? They're in there to die, and then the brood hosts are just going to wipe everything out in their wake. What's going on with both players? It looks like the corrosive poison finally being researched by Apocalypse. 3-3 ground attack, infested ground attack coming out. We have a couple of fanatics valiantly trying to get in there. They still took out a reasonable amount of roaches. The Dark Archon goes down before it can do anything, unfortunately, and I think Summerloud going to be in major trouble, but he does have 5 Tempests here. Tempests, they don't have any special abilities. They're just really big capital ships, plus the Vindicator. We'll see what this Vindicator can do. This is really cool. We're seeing some Nerazim and Infested late game. People wanted longer games. I told this to Summerloud. I told everybody, send me your best games, and this is what we're getting, which is great. One Plasma Cannon kind of out here in the middle of nowhere, I think, because Summerloud wanted to take this base. And the large ground units now coming in. These Tempests do a lot of damage. Here's the Vindicator. We can see how much damage it does. Very cool looking unit. I'm glad we get to see it in action before Apocalypse. I mean, I'm saying this because this is what I honestly think. Before Apocalypse comes in and just completely face rolls this, and down goes the Vindicator. A few Tempests left, but look at these Arachnids. They can also attack air. You spend that money, they can attack air. And down goes Summerloud's army, but it was cool to see those units in action. Never landed in Apocalypse, that's true, because your opponent, I think, knew what to look for. What a great game, though. This was a great showcase of both of these races, and again, Infested has been reworked. I think a lot really leans on getting these maggots as late game and then warping in these arachnids. But that was a wonderful match. I'm glad I was sent that. If you play HeptaCraft and you have some really interesting matches, feel free to send them to me, JayborinoPlays@gmail.com. Further, make sure you play HeptaCraft. If you think, hey, this is cool, and you're interested in playing some, then join the HeptaCraft Discord, download the ladder client, and get playing. It's really, really fun, and I hope to see you there. Bye now.